Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while, but I needed a little break, and I think it's been helpful. I did a little get ready with me video life update that I'm going to be posting today as well. If you're curious about what's been going on, and if you're not, and you just want me to get on with it, then you can skip that. Let's say hi to Sheila really fast. Hi, Gigi. Okay. So, today's video, first of all, the background is different. I'm very sorry, but it's the best that I got right now. I am having trouble getting my black background back up, but I'll fix it at some point. Hopefully it's not too distracting. I'll try to fix the lighting in my editing to turn the brightness down a little bit. So today's story is from the website longform.org, which I'll probably end up getting almost all of my true crime stories from going forward. My true crime content has been kind of sparse lately, but I know that's why a lot of you are here and are subscribers. So I want to give you what you want, and then I appreciate you allowing me to also make other types of videos. So without further ado, I'm sorry, let's get right into it. So the article that I read for this video is called The Tragedy of Harry Uzoka, and it's by Alexis Okeo. I'm sorry, I don't think I said that right. You spell the last name of the author the following way: Okeowo, and I believe it was a New York Times article. So you might have heard of this. I think it's pretty current. So Harry Uzoka was a black model, a young black model in the UK. His modeling career started when he was 17. He went to West London, which is a very kind of wealthy area, with his brother to a casting agency. The two had grown up with their mother in Dagenham, which was a working class neighborhood for a growing Nigerian community in London. Harry, being young, was really nervous for his first meeting. He wasn't exactly a star student. He did get in a little bit of trouble and ended up in a detention center as a teenager, just like getting into trouble with his friends. But his brother thought that he might be successful as a model, so he brought him along to the casting agency, and Patrick Egbon Marshall, who is an agent who was successful at placing black and mixed race men in high profile marketing campaigns, remembers Harry as at this meeting. He described him as being very shy. He said, quote, he had lost his way, and this was the only avenue he probably had. He was black and not the tallest, but he was very charming and able to listen. Egbon Marshall's agency ended up signing Uzoka soon after that meeting. At first, Harry wasn't sure if he would go far, or he was just kind of trying to make a little bit of money. But then he realized that he really had a talent for it, and his dreams just kind of started to expand. He was dreaming big. He was hoping to make it with Gucci or Prada or one of those big high fashion names. He was quoted as saying, "I want to be a role model for other black So I don't know a lot about it, but I learned from this article that it's kind of like a hurry up and wait type of industry. So basically you like rush to get yourself ready. You get to a talent agency and then you wait for up to an hour in the lobby just for someone to see you. And then they bring you in and they scrutinize every single part of you. So how tall are you? What's your skin look like? How do you walk? How do you move? How do you talk? And then your portfolio. So like what's in your portfolio? Who have you worked with before? What do your photos look like? And honestly, it seems like, oh, sorry, so what the article actually said is that many models go to as many as 15 castings in a day, and they don't even book one. So it takes a lot of time and effort to go to these casting calls. And if you can imagine, if each one takes an hour, that's like a 15-hour day for a 17-year-old kid. You know, that's a lot of work. And then even if you are cast and you're picked for a show, you have to wait even more. There's hours and hours of hair and makeup and fittings to prepare for just a 5-minute walk. That pays only a few £100, and it's less. Men seem to make less in the fashion world than women. So when you think about the casting process, waiting, hair and makeup, it's not very much per hour. Madeline Ostley, who is a casting director who worked with Harry earlier in his career, said being a male model is so difficult, and the lifespan of a male model is about 2 years. I don't mean they'll die after 2 years. I mean, you know what I mean. They'll be employable, quote unquote, for about 2 years until they move on to the next new hot thing. So not only was it difficult for male models to book, but it was even more difficult for black or minority models to book. But Harry and his black contemporaries started to become more successful, and this really indicated a shift in the market. Up until then, the only prominent black male model had been Tyson Beckford, who I remember very well as a kid. He's very, very handsome. Who was the face of Ralph Lauren Polo in the 1990s, and it would be 2 decades for more black men to approach his level of success. The gap was partly due to the nature of Beckford's fame. He had, extraordinarily good looks. He was popular with fans, and he had a connection to Polo, and it created a star status that no other black male model had seen. Since then, many black male models have passed through the industry, but with not as much success as him. So now we come into the time of Instagram and social media. Sorry. So Instagram, this is really interesting to me, has disrupted the modeling kind of status quo, in that the models started to cut out the middleman. themselves out there and getting a ton of followers. Eggbon Marshall, the agent who recruited Harry and his brother, said today being a male model is like being a rock star. It's becoming a thing disadvantaged black boys think they want to do to get out of council estates. Council estates is like public housing. Some of these kids have no passports. They've never done anything. They've all left school. But if they're beautiful, there's a chance that they could do this thing. And that was Harry's dream, and he was extremely successful at it. His career started to take off. Kennedy, the talent scout, said he had star quality. He was so attentive and engaged. He would talk to anyone and everyone backstage equally. He gave people his time and his energy. He seemed like an extremely kind young man. And you'll find out more about that. I guess I'll just keep going, sorry. So he started walking in London Fashion Week, appearing in Nike ads, Mercedes-Benz, and Zara. Casting directors started to request his presence, and labels booked him for Fashion Week exclusives, at times paying him £10,000 or more to commit to their campaigns. When he was 21, Paper magazine named him one of England's hottest models. So many people who knew and met Harry thought of him as sensitive and generous. He didn't need to project machismo, or like project this big masculine energy. Not that masculine energy is bad. Okay, he didn't need to pretend that he was something that he wasn't. Boys by Girls, which is a magazine in the UK, I think, called him a lovely, calm human being. He enjoyed talking about African history and love and metaphysics, describing himself as a free-flying soul, not bound by his physical body. He loved the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I never say his name right. He had not traveled abroad, and he had a curiosity about the world. He loved horror films and was fascinated by crystals and spirituality. And he dated a woman named Leomi Anderson at the time. So this part I thought was really cool. So in the community of black male models, others really looked up to Harry. There was more demand, like 3 or 4 years later after he started, there was more demand for black men in fashion. And there were still only a small number of them regularly working. Leonardo Taiwo, a London-born son of Nigerian immigrants, said, "I really admired models like Harry, and I watched him. I wanted to be recognized as much as he was. Everybody respected Harry. He was a world changer." Black fans found Harry's relationship with Anderson inspiring. They embodied a dark-skinned beauty not often found in fashion. A stylist said to the creative black community, Harry was not only a model, he was the living representation of possibility. His career was really taking off, and at 25, he had just started to enter the American market. But in 2018, Harry was killed by another rising black male model named George Go, K-O-H. George started his career in fashion not long after Harry. He was born in Liberia and immigrated to Britain with his family at the age of 2. After high school, he studied business economics at college and completed an internship at a media agency, but he didn't know what he wanted to do. So, while he was still a university student, a talent scout approached him on the street. At first, modeling seemed like a way to make money and to try something new. He thought maybe he could start traveling, and so Dean Cleary Patterson was the first agent to sign Go to his agency in November 2013, and he became one of the agency's top guys. Go quickly began booking jobs with labels like Kenzo and Louis Vuitton, and he liked to show off his success. According to court transcripts, Go texted a woman a photo of his check at a fancy restaurant to try to impress her, and he did things like that a lot. Some of his friends described him as immature, kind of not great with this newfound fame and money that he had. But Go found the work to be alienating. He found it hard to be the only black man on a shoot when there were a dozen white men and he was the only black man. Backstage, there were no stylists who could do his hair or understood how he and his friends liked to dress. No one who could relate to where he had come from and how he grew up. He said, I was the only one, or maybe there's another person, so it kind of felt like I was a novelty. Even though the industry was recruiting black models, it could treat them as kind of interchangeable commodities, which was frustrating for him and others. So, a lot of times, casting agencies would confuse Go and Harry Uzoka, and that was frustrating to Go, but they also bumped into each other a lot, and Harry ended up trying to become kind of a, I don't want to say a role model, like a mentor to him a little bit, because he had been in the industry a little longer and he was a little bit more successful. So as Harry's fame grew, it definitely had an effect on Go's sense of self. A streetwear designer said that the two were constantly being compared, and it was difficult for them to kind of separate themselves, and that was very frustrating to Go. So they actually ended up meeting in 2014, and Harry ended up giving him tips on walking and gave him tips on his portfolio and things like that. So Harry, sorry for the little pause there, I'm just trying to get to my spot. Sorry, so enter a new person we haven't talked about. Jamel Gordon Lynch got into modeling with the help of his mother after a friend of his suggested that he try it. An agency signed him when he was 20 years old, and he saw it as like an adventure, and he began to hang out with Harry Uzoka, whom he described as a bundle of light, and he started to hang out with other black models. The group decided to create a collective called Just a Norm, all one word, Just a Norm, which was a reference to how they were all just normal guys who had found themselves in a new and surreal reality. The group met up to talk about ideas over jerk chicken. They wanted to rap and produce music and create a YouTube channel was the norm. Uzoka and his friends would head off to castings where they usually would run into each other. And then later over lunch, they would relax and catch up and talk about jobs that they had booked and look through each other's portfolios. And they really propped each other up. So if one person got a job, then they really celebrated that. It was as if they all had gotten a job. Social media really loved the fact that they had to come together in that way. They thought it was kind of a beautiful way to look at an industry that's so competitive, and to see these young black men come together and support each other was really lovable. But like I said, George Go was kind of left out of it, so he started to kind of, I don't want to say stalk, but he started to kind of stalk he started to stalk Harry on Instagram. He started to try to follow Harry's friends and family, try to follow their private accounts. He was kind of being a little bit menacing, but he really was desperate to either be part of the group or to kind of destroy the group. You can't really tell which one. So, about a week before Harry Uzoka's death, Go invited Aniseta Lafon, a model who's visiting from Paris, to hang out with them. Lafon was part of the intersecting circles of black models living in Europe. She had first connected with Harry, whom she befriended over Instagram, and not long after he followed her, Ko did the same. So Ko invited her over, and she testified in court, and she said even though she had never met him in person, they felt like they were part of like a similar intimate bubble of models. So she felt like she could trust him, and she felt like it was okay to go over and meet him. But after she arrived at his apartment, Ko repeatedly asked her if she knew Harry Uzoka, and claimed that he had slept with Harry's girlfriend, the model, who was Ruby Campbell. Campbell later wrote on Instagram that she didn't even know Ko, and she never had even met him, and that it seemed creepy that he was saying that he slept with her. Lafon grew very uncomfortable and ended up leaving. She spent the next week at Harry's place, where she told him what Ko had said. In response, Harry just kind of laughed it off and was just assumed that Ko's posturing was just like a normal part of his daily life. He was like, oh, this guy's always bothering me, he's always making up lies about me, like whatever, just let it roll off your back. But then it started to really bother him what he said about his girlfriend. So the next day, the two of them started arguing on a phone call that was on speaker. Ko said that the model Lafon was lying and denied saying anything about sleeping with Harry's girlfriend. And when Harry asked how Ko even knew who he was dating, Ko said that he figured it out on Instagram, and the things just kind of escalated from there. Harry tried to settle the matter on the phone, but Ko ended up apologizing to Harry over text. But he added to that text that he was ready to fight if he needed to, which kind of set the stage for what happened next. So Ko ended up calling Harry a few times, but he didn't answer. And this really bothered Ko, so he texted, "Where are you? I'll come there and we can fight. Bring your friends with you." responders tried to revive him, but he died of his wounds that night. So, that evening, Go had no idea that Harry died because of the stab wound that he inflicted on him, and he called a friend and confessed that he had stabbed someone. They prayed together over the phone, asking God to help Go make better choices. 3 days later, Go turned himself in and was charged with murder and possession of an offensive weapon. In court, Go testified that he didn't mean to kill Harry. He was crying on the witness stand, and he recalled how Harry taught him how to walk on the runway, gave him advice, and inspired him. He claimed that he was in genuine fear for his life and acted in self-defense. He said, "I didn't mean to stab him," and he said that over and over and over again. He said, "I apologized even though I didn't do anything. I'm so sorry that he's dead." Before Go was sentenced, a statement from Harry's mother was read in court. She had kept a low profile during the trial, avoiding the media, and in only a few short years, her son had made good on her dream. As he grew more successful, he had helped pay her mortgage and took her on vacations abroad. He had even begun to build a home for her back in Nigeria. She said, "I have so much pain for the death of my Harry, and I find it difficult these days to go on without him. His departure has left a gaping hole, a gap, a void in the family that we are all finding hard to contend with. He was due to start acting in a couple of upcoming movies, but that chance has been taken away from him. My son was a beautiful boy. I would give anything to change places with Harry, to take away the horror and pain that he suffered that day." To those who knew Harry and Cole, each man appeared to have a lot of ideas, to have let ideas of masculinity and honor distort their judgment. It was about male pride, its ego. When you feel disrespected, peer pressure can make it harder to let go. Go said something similar in court when he was asked what he meant when he texted Harry that he was ready to fight. He said, "To be honest, I didn't mean the word fight." He told the court it was just bravado. What I meant, what I was trying to do, was just find a situation where I could meet Harry and just speak to him face to face. On September 21st, 2018, Go was sentenced to life in prison for murder. His friend who carried the machete was also convicted of murder, and another friend was convicted of manslaughter. From prison, Go still sounded bewildered by what he had done. He said, "I kind of thought, okay, let me just show Harry that I'm a big man. And that's how it escalated. It's my fault," he said.